I want you to take a minute and think about the best meal you've ever had. The taste of the food, the texture, the lighting in the room around you. That doesn't just happen on its own. And then think about it while you're on the move in a place like an airport. It comes together with people and a special philosophy. In this case, the golden rule and the concept of another Big Apple. We're sitting down getting the inside scoop on how one man does it in Central Ohio and how he built his hospitality empire. Let's go. Welcome to Cbuzz, the award-winning podcast presented by the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, proudly recognized as Columbus's very first business-focused podcast. We are thrilled to bring you this show in partnership with Capital University. I'm Mikaela Hunt, your host and brand journalist for Cbuzz, where we dive into the compelling stories of the leaders who are shaping Central Ohio's vibrant business community. Today, we're broadcasting from the Convergent Media Center at Capital University, a really dynamic space where students and faculty collaborate on music, film, creative writing, and digital media projects. We're excited to share these incredible stories with you from this innovative hub. I want to welcome Robert E. Lee III, founder and president of Touchstone Hospitality. Now, I'm going to set this up a little bit. Robert has more than 35 years of leadership in the business and hospitality industry. Since launching Touchstone in 2009, he's grown it into a dynamic hospitality management and consulting company. He also is a longtime Donato's franchise partner, operating multiple locations inside John Glenn International Airport. You may have been to one of them. And as a joint venture partner with global restaurateur HMS Host, he also operates a collection of well-known concessions, from names you know like Starbucks to Wolfgang Puck. Beyond his business ventures, Robert is a certified John Maxwell coach, an active community leader, and the recipient of numerous awards recognizing his impact and service. Robert, welcome to Cbuzz. We're excited to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. You made me sound really great.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to pull a lot of great stuff out of you in this interview. So thanks for sitting with me for a little bit of time. You know, for our listeners who may not be familiar, how would you describe Touchstone Hospitality's mission and really your role in shaping the company? I have a feeling there's an interesting history and philosophy with it.
So, Touchstone Hospitality, we celebrate people. From our team members to our guests, in general, we celebrate people. My company's pillars are the spirit of excellence and the spirit of hospitality. So the spirit of excellence is having a different mindset than the average person and taking pride in being exceptional in all the areas, whether it's personal presentation, personal appearance, customer service, how you communicate, relationships with other team members. And then the spirit of hospitality is, the spirit of hospitality really aligns, ironically enough, with the founder of Donato's Pizza, that's Jim Brody. It aligns with his following the golden rule: treat others the way you would like to be treated.
Yes.
So, the spirit of hospitality is the notion that we all have value. We all have, and anytime I do orientations, I try to do as many orientations as I can because I'm not in the stores on a daily basis. Whenever I do an orientation, I always ask a new team member, who do you believe your first customer is? And I hear all the standard answers. And I tell them there's no bad answer, but there's a right answer. And at the end of the day, they get to, or I take them to the spaces, your first customer is the team member standing right next to you. And again, that whole dynamic of celebrating people, and taking value in people and each other. The hospitality industry is tough. Airport concessions is really tough. It's constant. It's in fact, our Southwest location is a beast. I think Southwest is the single busiest airline. The terminal, Concourse B, is the busiest terminal because there's multiple airlines, but Southwest has grown so much over the years, and our opportunities for growth has come along with it. So, yeah.
So these pillars, I feel like the beginnings of this business started really early with you. I had a chance to take a look at your bio. You started your career as a dishwasher in Detroit at a place called Cappy's Diner.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So So I was 14 when I worked at Cappy's.
14?
Yeah, you know, it's one of those restaurant.
My 14-year-old wants to know how to get a job. I'm going to say, you need to talk to Robert.
Well, you know, you're supposed to do that. Cappy's does no longer exist anyway. It's gone. But it was in the, what they call the museum district now in Detroit, near Wayne State campus. It was a great restaurant, very popular. And I worked there for money to shop at the end of the day. But I fell in love with the hospitality space as a result of working at Cappy's. And then I worked at Cappy's through high school. My buddies did, got my other friends jobs and so on and so forth. But my love for hospitality actually started with, you may not remember, Mikaela, your age, you may not remember there was a series called Hotel. It was on, I forget what network it was on. But it was about a hotel. It was a drama about a hotel. The owner of the hotel lived in the hotel in the penthouse. And her number one guy in the building was a guy named Peter McDermott. Peter McDermott drove a 911 Porsche. And I forget the guy's name. He played in Amityville Horror, the guy with the beard. But
yes, anyway, I know that.
He was the hotel general manager, and I just thought he was the coolest guy. And so, but I never even considered that hotels might be an opportunity for me. I loved that character. And then when I started working in the restaurant space, and restaurant, hospitality and restaurants, they're all the same. So when the opportunity presented itself, and I think we'll talk about that later, about how I ended up where I am, it was a natural fit for me. And then I ended up veering off the road that was set for me by my parents. And where I am today, ended up where I am today.
I need to touch on that. You veered off the road that was set for you by your parents.
Yeah, yes.
So what did they want you to do?
So I'm from Detroit, born and raised in Detroit. I moved to Columbus. I was a student at DeVry. In fact, at the time, it was called Bell and Howell. At the time, it was still called Bell and Howell. So this was 1988, 86, one of those, in the 80s.
Yep.
Came here to go to school. And I was a tech major. They had 3 different majors at Bell and Howell at the time. And a buddy of mine told me about an opportunity to be a job at a hotel, being a banquet houseman. And basically put out coffee breaks and set up tables. And I just started doing that job for beer money.
Right.
I was fortunate. Kid, my parents, paid my rent and stuff. And I was there about a year. And I'll say names. It's okay to say names, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Bob Bradley. I don't know if he's out there where he is, but Bob Bradley was the banquet manager. Was leaving for another opportunity, and just kind of approached me and said, "Hey, you have a natural acumen for this space. Would you like to be the banquet manager?" And I thought, man, banquet manager. And I tell you, I remember I made $17,000 a year.
But you thought at the time.
Let me tell you something. I thought 17, that's almost my age, That's what I thought. So yeah, that was my first opportunity. It was the Holiday Inn on Stelzer Road. It's a different flag, not today.
But that really was the start. You had to break the news to your parents that you weren't going to go to school anymore. But that truly, after Cappy's, was the start of what became this career.
That was actually the launch, right? That was actually the launch in the space that I am today. Yeah.
So ultimately, you spent over a decade with Columbus Hospitality, working in nearly every department before becoming a general manager. During that time, in that decade, what lessons did you learn that still guide you today?
Okay, well, there's so many. The people-centric dynamic, right? That's what exists. And I hope I don't sound redundant throughout this conversation, but it really is the people space. So I was fortunate in that I worked in a space. Columbus Hospitality was the name of the company. And actually, I should say this too. So Charles Lagarce is the president of Columbus Hospitality. He's still here in Columbus. And his company started off managing assets for Nationwide Realty Investments here in Columbus. And the first property was the Crown Plaza Hotel on Nationwide Boulevard. It's changed flags recently, and Charles' company no longer operates it. But Charles was the general manager of the hotel when I got there. I watched Charles matriculate and create a management company through a partnership with another management company in another location. And he started Columbus Hospitality, so I was able to see him and watch him do that. And so it inspired. I actually never really had entrepreneurial aspirations. I wanted to grow up in the hospitality space, be an executive, become a GM one day, then at some point maybe be a vice president, hopefully for Charles's company. I had no plans for entrepreneurship. In fact, I used to have people ask me all the time back then if I wanted to do my own restaurant. I said, no, I want to be a corporate guy. But watching Charles matriculate and create what he's done today, he's got several hotels all over the country now, and still a few here in Columbus. It inspired me, and so so I would say that Charles's mentorship
helped you take the leap.
Helped me take the leap. So I started there as a banquet manager. Mm-hmm. And I was there for 13 years, and in that 13-year period, I was a restaurant manager. I was a room service manager. I was assistant banquet manager. I was a housekeeping manager for 3 years, which was really where I cut my teeth relative to, and I don't want to get on my soapbox, but imagine managing a department of people who most people in any vocation wouldn't do that job for what the money they make. It's a tough space. But nothing happens until somebody sells something, and you can't sell a room until it's clean, right? So it's one of those dynamics. And so managed housekeeping department for 3 years. That is really where I learned how to motivate a team. That's really where I learned how to mentor through adversity. A lot of my team members had challenging backgrounds, but they still had to come to work and do this work. And I'm one of those people. My wife would tell you, and most people would. I'm overly generous with everything, my time and resources when I can. And so I got into some challenges, but it was part of my journey.
Helping people. Yeah.
And then it's interesting, my next opportunity after that was as a sales manager. And that's basically selling the hotel space, the rooms, and so on and so forth.
So you're this kind of mentor and coach to the housekeeping team.
Yep.
You've got this guy who kind of is a mentor and an inspiration to you. So when you went into Brownstone on Main or Linden Cafe, and you really took the leap, is my understanding, like along those lines, why did that happen? What was the moment?
So it's interesting. So the Brownstone, that was a guy who was my very good friend. Now we're actually very close now. At that time when I took the opportunity, we were both in an organization called the 100 Black Men of Central Ohio. I knew who Jeff was, he knew who I was, but we didn't know each other really. But he approached me to ask me to lead the search for the general manager of the restaurant.
Okay.
I did invest, but he asked me to lead the search. I was leading the search. There were two people that we were interested in getting. One of them was at Lindy's. I knew she wasn't going to leave Lindy's. The other was with Cameron Mitchell Restaurants, and I knew he wouldn't leave there. But I attempted to talk to both of them. They both turned me down. And at some point in time, my wife says, why don't you do it? And so the really interesting thing about that is that I talked to Charles about it. So we actually formed Touchstone Hospitality then.
You formed it then?
Yeah. Okay. So we formed it then, and I approached Jeff about, hey, why don't you let my management company come and operate this business for you? And Jeff talked me out of that. He talked me out of that, talked me into coming and being on his team, and so we that's where the idea was born. But the opportunity didn't come then because Jeff kind of convinced me to come along with him.
So when did the leap happen?
So the leap happened. So I did Brownstone. Jeff and I didn't work very well together. The restaurant did very well during my tenure there, and it lasted for about 3 or 4 years here in Columbus. So it was a very popular restaurant. After that, the last job I had was where I went. I was the club manager at the Capitol Club. And that was really a great opportunity for me, right? Because my board was a virtual who's who of Columbus, all the captains of industry and leaders in Columbus. And that was a great job. Loved that job. Ran the club for 2.5 years. And then the opportunity, the interest in getting back into the ownership space was very much with me. And so I left the Capitol Club, and that's when I started Touchstone Hospitality. And initially, Touchstone Hospitality was purely a consulting company.
So you were kind of like, you had been working full time and then, I'm going to start this.
Yeah.
I'll consult a little bit,
Yep.
which is how it's born in a lot of folks' lives.
Yep. And in fact, I actually talked to Charles, and Columbus Hospitality came in and operated the Capitol Club after my departure as one of his management contracts. And so looking for opportunities for us. And ultimately what happened is that there was an airport at near John, the closest hotel to the airport was the Concourse Hotel, is where that walking parking lot is right now. But the Concourse Hotel had gone into receivership. And so we thought there might be an opportunity to operate the hotel through receivership and then perhaps operate on behalf of the owner, whoever that might be, on the other end. And so that's why we approached the airport authority. And many of the board members at that time were on my board at the Capitol Club, so I had some relationships. We got the opportunity for the conversation, but ultimately we learned that there were plans that have been followed through, that the concourse was going away. But as a result of that, they invited me to come in to do concessions. And my first opportunity was at Tim Hortons.
At Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Airports serve as both a gateway and a first impression for a city. You and I both know that. So now, after more than a decade of operating restaurants inside CMH, what insights have you gained into hospitality's role in that very specific experience? Because that's not like, me living in Columbus, choosing to go to a restaurant. I'm coming through the airport, going out of the airport. What have you learned from that? So
it's more of an operational thing, but so hospitality in general is all the same. It's people. In this case, it's perishable product because it's food.
And treating them well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the dynamic in an airport environment is that you never close. I mean, I'm the only Donato's in Central Ohio that is open 365 days a year. That's a different dynamic. It's different when you're trying to find leaders. It's different when you're trying to find team members. One of the challenges for airport operation is that when you're trying to employ someone, well, they could get the job at the Donato's on Main Street. To get off, if they're driving the bus, to get off the bus, they can get 3 minutes before they have to clock in on time. Driving the same way. For us, once it sets in on you that you kind of got to get there 25 minutes to a half hour before you clock in because of the process of getting into the airport. If you're driving, you park in a lot and take a shuttle. If you take the bus, you still have to get a bus, but you still have to go through TSA. It's just a very challenging dynamic. And then we have to execute that same people experience, meet the same expectation, because from the Donato's perspective, it's the Donato's that they're used to the service and consistency that they get in their neighborhood Donato's.
Right.
And they expect that rightly at the airport. The other challenge for me in particular, for us in particular, and really airport concessions is that 80% of Donato's customers are not front-facing. 80% of them are having their pizzas delivered. And so 100% of our customer is front-facing. So all of our team members interact with the guests on a regular basis. And that creates an interesting dynamic because we are on from start to finish.
How do you train differently because of that?
So now Donato's, as any reputable food service company or hospitality restaurant company, customer service is a big deal. But customer service is the first thing for us. Somebody's getting on a plane to go be reprimanded. Somebody's getting on a plane for some sad occasion. A lot of people get on a plane to go on vacation and have a good time. But there's all these different dynamics that exist with our customer. And so we have to be able to meet that expectation or meet their mood or their space and get them through, deliver the pizza hot and delicious, as we do, and
feed
send them on the way.
Feed
a hungry soul. Feed a hungry soul. And that's the dynamic for all the restaurants inside of John Glenn. How
can the hospitality sector help elevate some of these projects we're seeing out there, like the new terminal at John Glenn? How do you think the hospitality industry needs to step up, take part even more so? So, and we are, and it is. I'm fortunate to be a joint venture partner with the master concessionaire as you mentioned, HMS Host at the airport there. The new terminal what'll be different is it'll be one security entrance instead of the three that there are today.
That's the primary difference in between the current airport and the new airport. Obviously, the newness and all the technology and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, the expectation will be the same. And what is expected of us is to deliver the product in a manner that is that exceeds the expectation of the guest, right? Meeting it, especially because you're going to pay a little more for a pizza. You're going to pay a little more for a cocktail. I'm fortunate in my restaurant, I have full-service bars in both my restaurants. It's going to be a little more, sometimes a lot more, and there's an expectation goes along with it.
With that price tag.
Exactly.
We have a thriving hospitality scene, period, in the city. We all know that. What do you think makes us special when it comes to hospitality and entrepreneurship? What do you feel like, being from Detroit, seeing what you've seen, I'm sure across the country, what makes Columbus different in terms of
So I used to say this when I worked with Columbus Hospitality. I was very active with what is called Experience Columbus, but at the time it was the Greater Columbus Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I used to have the opportunity to travel with the sales team for different opportunities. And I used to describe Columbus then, and I still say it this way. I used to describe Columbus in the early 90s as the Big Apple. And when I say that, I mean Columbus is one of the cities that all you got to do is take a bite, whatever your space is. It's an open city. So many brands have started here. Cameron Mitchell, obviously Donato's. There's so much in this, but White Castle's headquartered here and grew here. There's so many different dynamics. And the other thing that's interesting about Columbus is there's no single dominating industry, right? So it's one of those things where we have all these different industries, but I think our number one employer is still the state of Ohio, largely because of Ohio State, of course, and then, of course, all the other state agencies. But there's no single dominating industry here. And I think that creates a whole opportunity for anyone in business. And so I know so many things that have launched and started here in Columbus since, and I'm sure you've had conversations with people that are your guests. It's an open town, and there was a time when most things had not been done yet. There was a time, right? That has changed, but there's still a lot of things that haven't been done yet. And so I think Columbus is right for it. Again, because it's a relationship town, I should add that. Relationships matter, but it's an open city. It's been my experience as somebody from someplace else, having moved here and matriculated through my career, and both as a executive and as a leader, owner.
And ripe also works for an apple.
Exactly.
I thought about that when you said it.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So, okay, you have had experiences as an adjunct professor at Columbus State. How has that commitment to mentorship shape your experiences and where you think we could go in this city based on the students that you saw that came through?
So my mom used to tell my sister and I that each of us is a sum total of our experiences. And so since I'm somebody who has all this background in the hospitality space, but not in one, I had a preference for the food and beverage side. But as I shared earlier, I learned a lot as a housekeeping manager. I learned a lot about processes and how the hotel makes money when I was a sales manager. So the other areas of hospitality, or at least in my experience, is I know how to manage people. I know how to manage process. I know how to sell. I know how to look at a thing from the customer's perspective, because that's what it exists both in the hotel and the restaurant space. And so because of all of that, I think that I am engaging because I can speak from a position. If somebody's in the room that is a banquet houseman or a server or a bartender, I did those jobs before at some point in time in my career. I'm not a leader who has led from a leadership perspective. I've led by doing, and then I matriculated and have enjoyed it. And I think I bring value in that. I know all the steps that I took.
And then, as if you hadn't done enough in your experiences, there's a couple books sitting in front of us. This journey has influenced your work now as a certified coach, trainer, and speaker. So you're a John Maxwell guy, which I learned when I was prepping for this. And I want to talk a little bit about your John Maxwell training and how these skills that you decided to pick up connect to the consulting side of Touchstone Hospitality.
So the Maxwell Leadership Calling. Yeah, that's what the organization, their calling, or our calling, is to add value to people all over the world. And so that's the calling of the John Maxwell team member. John Maxwell, whether you are in the coaching lane, the teaching training lane, or the speaking lane. And I aspire to be a speaker one day, but I'm hanging out in the coach and training lane right now. But the core beliefs center around the truth that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. I'm going to read this, actually. So, thus, the model, method, and approach for all we do is built upon our desire to influence others effectively, though. Influencing them effectively. Each Maxwell method is a method to use leadership, speaking, coaching, training, or sales to influence others in a manner that adds value.
Which I love, because we started your journey with celebrating people and now adding value to people.
Yeah. Add value to people. So I had to learn this part. I struggled with a little bit, and my wife does this full time. But adding value, because I approached it because I wanted to start another line of business, frankly. But in the John Maxwell space, add value, focus on bringing something to someone, adding value to them or the organization. The rest will take care of itself. And so I've had to learn that, right? Because I kind of struggle with it's sort of an imposter syndrome, because I wanted to do it for the money. But at the end of the day, I end up, it's the space that I've been in all these years, right?
Right.
By employing people or training people or encouraging people. And so, that's really, at the end of the day, that core value is the engine behind being successful, in my opinion, in anything, let alone the hospitality restaurant.
So that coaching you bring into the hospitality work that you do as a consultant. So Touchstone Hospitality has that consulting component to it now.
Absolutely. So okay. I just went through this book here with my team of leaders we were intended to do it over the 15 weeks because there are 15 laws. It took us about 20 weeks because there were times that we could not come together. We did it virtually. But that book is the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And here's the thing. The book is not rocket science. It is each one of the laws are very tangible things that make sense. Like the first law is my favorite. The first law is the law of intentionality, being intentional. That's not rocket science, but until you look at it in the framework that Dr. Maxwell has laid it out, it's interesting to see. And I was real concerned, Mikaela, that my team members, that this might have been too deep for some of them.
Because he gets deep.
Yeah, I was concerned, but they showed up every week. And we did it virtually. They showed up every week. 80 to 90% of them actually read and were prepared. The only time we had challenges is when there were operational challenges where we couldn't meet because of what was going on in the business. But we tried to do it at a specific time of the day, and it really excited me to see what the impact. Now they want to know what the next one is.
Yeah, and you added value to your team members' lives by doing that.
Yep.
I could talk to you for another half an hour. I really could. I usually ask for a book recommendation. Is this your book recommendation?
So I have 3 that I'm reading. So
okay.
I'm actually teaching out of the 15 Valuable Laws of Growth, both teaching and coaching.
Okay.
And then because I get asked about my entrepreneur journey, which there's been ups and downs. We talked about a lot of great things, but there's been lots of ups and downs. Another one of my favorites of Dr. Maxwell's is sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And the tag is life's greatest lessons are gained from our losses. And so I've had plenty of losses. So I'm planning to start a mastermind with this for aspiring entrepreneurs, right? Or anyone who's been in the space and have struggled, or have had some challenges. I hate to say the word failure, had some challenges.
Challenges, yeah.
Because it's only a failure if you stop. So, and then my the other book that I read for the second time, I understand you got to read it 3 times, and that is Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, I've heard of that book, and I've not read it.
It's an interesting read, and the writer even says that you got to read this a second time. And I'm about to start my 3rd time. The first time I did the audio version. And I do a lot of that, audio books, because I'm moving around a lot. But yeah, Think and Grow Rich, Pauline Hill.
Wow. Lots of knowledge. Like I said, we could go on. Just thank you for joining us and imparting some of it today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Your journey's pretty incredible. And keep us posted on whatever comes next. I have a feeling that this is heading a direction when I'm pointing to the books and thinking about that whole philosophy and training. If our listeners are eager to learn more about Touchstone Hospitality, they can visit www.touchstone365.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review us on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps others discover our show and really ensures that we keep delivering the stories like the ones Robert told today that matter the most. Cbuzz is brought to you in collaboration with Capital University. We are so grateful for their talented students, faculty, and staff, and the invaluable support they provide while bringing this podcast to life. Once again, my name is Mikaela Hunt, your host for Cbuzz, the Columbus Chamber of Commerce's premier business podcast. We can't wait to share more inspiring stories with you in our next episode.